Okay, we'll call Streets and Sidewalks Committee to order. The only thing on the agenda tonight is the sidewalk construction, maintenance, and repair program. I'm going to ask my fellow committee members here. We've all had a chance to look over the proposal that Greg put together for us. I know there was, in our last meeting, we had a lot of discussions, pros and cons on the reasons to go forward or to not go forward. Well, actually, I was the only one who was ready not to go forward, but I think we're going to be able to, I know Greg did such a good job of researching other communities, the state statute, what other communities are doing. I'm going to make a recommendation to my other committee members that we move Greg's plan forward to finance, where we can have a more open discussion, or not that we can't have one tonight, but a more open discussion with everybody, every council member in attendance. I just asked before we, the next finance meeting, if this is okay with you guys, if Kathy can put a note, an email note to everybody to review Greg's proposal, jot down any changes or amendments that you would like to add to it that we can then discuss at finance and move forward. Otherwise, I think that we're just going to be, and we understand the need for it. I know there's just concerns, pros and cons on to what was presented to us. So, Bill, I don't know how you feel about that.
We can discuss it at finance, but I have there's a couple things in Greg's proposal that I'd like to see changed, but I'm fine moving it forward. We can discuss it as a
right. I just think as a whole body with administration and the
because
whole
I think we all recognize it's the funding is the question.
Right.
So
exactly.
I think you're doing exactly the right thing.
You okay with that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm okay with moving it forward.
Mayor, are you okay with that?
Yes. I would just tell you that I asked Mr. Hubert to submit this, and we're not married or...
Oh, no, I understand that.
It can fluctuate any way that everybody or the majority is happy with, from funding to shared costs to whatever. But we wanted to get it off square one.
Right,
So
and that's
this was
what
a
I
starting point. I think we can build from here and
Right.
do something that we can all agree to move forward with.
So this will give us 2 weeks, the council members that are here, give us 2 weeks to look at what Greg has presented to us, to see what you like, what you don't like. Again, I think the biggest question that I think everybody's in agreement, something has to be started, like the mayor said, getting off square one. My feelings is not that we don't need to do something that's strictly the funding. So I'm going to look at Greg's proposal and I've got some suggestions that for me would make me feel more comfortable moving forward. But I'm sure everybody, it's a like I said, it's a big issue that's going to affect a lot of people in our community. So let's do our homework, and at finance we can hopefully get some questions answered, get an agreement, we can move forward with it.
I might suggest scheduling a special council or finance meeting, because it's going to probably take
It's what?
probably
Gonna take a while.
Well, that is also a good idea. Jim and John's probably the ones that have the biggest time constraints. Could we have a meeting prior to our regular finance meeting on the 24th?
a special finance work. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Start at 5 instead of 6?
Yeah.
And if
Well,
the agenda for finance is going to be too long, we can just choose a separate date
We can start
then.
it, yeah, if you'd like to do that.
I won't be here.
Oh, yeah, but won't be here.
I may have the next one.
Pardon?
Next finance meeting.
Okay, well then we're going to have to schedule, I'll get with Kathy and
Yeah, I'd really like to.
we'll come up with some dates and she'll pass along to everybody to see what dates are good for everybody and we can have a special
I might be here,
finance.
but I already told Kathy that we're going to be out of town for the weekend. We're not coming back till Monday afternoon.
Okay,
We're just
I
not
think
sure
a
what time
special
yet,
one
so-
will be.
yeah, that's
Really
fine,
listen
that's
to you
fine.
right there.
You good with that, Mark?
Yeah, and John wants to
Jim?
have more meetings, so.
I'll, I I have a couple suggestions just for what Greg did, and I'll email those to everybody on council ahead of
Okay.
time, just so
That's good.
you can see what just a couple minor changes to what he has.
The only reminder maybe that Greg brought up before is he has a real concern with the city paying 50% or greater
Right.
because of assuming the
Liability.
liability, yeah.
Right.
So just as you're making your recommendations, if you kind of keep that in mind, and if you can stay left to 50%
South
Right.
50%.
Right.
or south.
I don't have a recommendation for the city to pay for it.
Okay, okay.
And one thing, I don't know, if you think, looking at some sort of finance plan through the city?
Well, you know, what I talked to Greg about that makes sense to me, and you know, I don't think I don't know if you agree with this or not, but if you look at the cost to put in, you know, if I have to replace one section of my sidewalk, one of those squares,
Mhm.
it's about $140 a section. And you could put that on your tax duplicate for 10 years. Correct? I mean, that's what Craig told you. I mean, you could put it on tax duplicate. So if I had to replace 3 sections and it was, you know, whatever that comes up to, and I could, if I chose, pay it off over 10 years. When I look at the average, if I had to do my entire sidewalk, over 10 years, that would be a doable
You're
thing.
talking about the city finance.
Well, in a way, the city is, but you're paying for it, so the city doesn't get any, the city has no liability because,
I mean, I think that's a good idea.
the city has no liability because you are paying, you are simply amortizing it over, and you pay it with your taxes, or you could pay it over 5 years, I guess, but you could pay it over 10 years if you chose to, if you had to do, you know, $1,000 worth. But most people, I think if somebody, you know, I have to replace one section for $140 and the city gets a contract with contractors or a concrete guy, we get a better price, I could handle that. But I think for the folks that can't handle it, if you can spread it out over 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, that solves the problem of the.
That's a good suggestion.
I agree with it, because that's what I wrote down here, not the tax duplicate, but a finance
Right.
plan to stretch it out. But the only thing that we would have to look at is what would be the impact to the city, because somebody's got to pay that contractor today. All
That's
right.
why I think.
That's where we would have to look at the cash flow and how that would impact us.
That's why I think, though, that we have to look at it not incrementally, but I think we have to look at it as a phased. You know, we want to, I think, address serious problems, this one and this one, but then as we talked about, I don't know, a year ago, or I don't know how many years ago, start here and just move out, so we're not attacking the whole thing at one time, but we have a plan and a program in place, and it's comfortable for residents financially and smart for us to, you know, safety to fix that. I think that's
Yeah,
doable.
something that's gonna have the least amount of impact on people that's struggling now.
Yep.
And like I said, that's my only concern.
Well, like you said, a lot of the areas are gonna end up being in the older area where folks
Right.
maybe can't afford to, but if in fact you can spread that out over a period of time, I think
Yeah.
that's.
Makes it
And I
easier
still
to
think we
handle, yeah.
need to address, and there's a large section of the city, and I know, I said I was just gonna pass it through. The areas where there's no tree lawn, it's street and sidewalk. You know, we said that the city's gonna be responsible for the sidewalks that are lifted by the trees on the right-of-way. But what about when there's no right-of-way? I mean, there's no tree lawn. In Ward 2, I know there's a lot
You
of
know, when we
areas.
get to finance though, and I haven't talked to Nino or Patrick about it, or the mayor, but, you know, I looked at a number of places where there are, you know, they're flush to the street, where they have, I guess similar to what's at Garfield, and I don't know if it's on the sidewalk, but where they have like a railing, you know, they have a guard, so that when you're walking down the street, you can't step out into the street. And so, once we get through the funding, I think that it's important that we begin to look at places that are where there's specific and unique problems that aren't simply the sidewalk and a tree lawn, you know, in a regular streetscape, but this is an unusual spot. For example, there's some places where there are aprons that are over 200 feet long, an apron that's that long, and there's no designation of where is the sidewalk, because it's just all part of a huge apron.
Right.
And, you know, how do we deal with that? We could probably come up with a smart way to figure that one out, but you're right, I think it's really important, because a lot of those are by the school.
Well, yeah.
You know, that's where those kids walk to school.
But, so Patrick or Nino, those sidewalks where the curb is up here and the sidewalk is sunk, maybe because of water runoff, rainwater runoff, et cetera, is it possible to get some sort of pressure grouting to raise that?
It is, and that might be an option in some cases. First of all, the sidewalk's got to be, you don't want to do it if the sidewalk's in bad shape.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
But yeah, that could be an option.
Yeah, if the concrete is salvageable,
Yeah, and I guess we need to look, I really don't have a good grasp as to cost-wise, you know, is it 50 cents?
Because if we determine that
$7?
it's not the homeowner's responsibility, then it's the city's responsibility, you're talking a lot of money there. Because there's a lot
It's
of,
almost as much as replacing that, you know,
Pardon?
for the liquefied cost, you know, with this concrete leveling, slab jacking as they refer to it.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's almost as costly as tearing out and
And replacing
replacing,
it.
doing a
Yeah.
new with proper base.
now where the street's being reconstructed, like on Union Street, it's great because right now they're level with the curb, so, but none of the other ones that are street, curb and sidewalk are, you know, if it hasn't been in the last couple of years where a street's been totally reconstructed, where they've replaced those sidewalks, yeah, it's, anyhow. Okay, well, if that's everybody's homework, we'll look at this in the next couple of weeks.
are you gonna grade on a curve?
So see, my meeting's short and sweet.
So we need,
Pardon?
we need a motion though to move it to finance. You need a
Yes.
motion.
Somebody make a motion, we move this,
So moved.
Greg's written proposal to finance.
So moved.
Second. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, is it, just so I understand, and I'll brief Mr. Huber tomorrow, or between now and finance?
Well, we're gonna have a special finance meeting, so it's not gonna be before the 24th, it's gonna be sometime after the 24th.
Okay.
Hopefully before recess.
Even so, are you asking the committee members or the
leaving
council
Mark?
to send information to him?
Mark,
Or
let
we're
me
gonna
know
wait and
about-
discuss it at finance?
We're just gonna discuss the finance and.
He doesn't have to prepare things between now and
No,
then?
he doesn't have to prepare
Got it.
anything.
That's all I need.
Well, they might have to.
Well, I mean, after we
Right.
make the, have questions, he might have to come up with some answers.
Beautiful meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we're done.
Thank you.